How's it going, EJ?
It's going great. Watching lots of great shows nowadays.
Go right into it. You know, before we started doing the podcast and the clips and everything, and for some reason this week, the old like our most famous AVGN commentary videos are like getting kicked right back up. Like all of a sudden,
I've been seeing the commentary, the very colorful commentary that, as if these videos are new.
like look at these fucking guys, all over again. And it just like before we did this podcast, I mean, like the Boxmac Junts Cart channel was like 95% positivity. When you talk about controversial things, apparently, like I don't like this show or I don't like that show, or this YouTuber seems like he has lost his fucking mind. It seems like the most common pushback you get, either it's like, well, but you suck, or like there's the personal attacks, and then there's the more common one is like, why are you talking about this? Which is kind of like, well, I don't know, why talk about anything of interest? Sometimes that comes in the form of, it's not important, don't talk about things that are unimportant. Sometimes it comes in the form of, don't be negative. There's a guy named Trash Boat this week that was just trying to poke holes in anything he could, and it was total nonsense. But so don't talk. Why are you talking about this? And the other one is you're jelly. Like whatever you're whatever you're criticizing, James Rolfe, forget that. Like whatever you're criticizing, you're jelly of it.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous of She-Hulk. Her CGI hair. Oh God, I wish my hair could be like.
Why
that.
can't I be an AI Kevin Feige? Let me ask you this.
Shit.
Yeah, well, we should recap the episode for those who didn't make it to the end, which is everybody, right? Like, let's establish the fact that so I heard just today in our Discord, somebody said that they're going to be a lot of like the ideas they were having for shows, they're going to turn into specials. And I know exactly why. I need not read anything to know exactly why. It's because they're looking at the numbers.
You don't have to put your tinfoil scrapbooking hat on for that one.
I don't need to. Yeah, I don't need to. I don't need any Alex Jones energy to say it's because everybody tunes in for the premieres of these things to see what it is, and everybody dumps out. Like,
including the journalists.
Yeah, like if you try to look up any kind of like weekly reaction, there's like some, but like all the heat is taken off of like She-Hulk, Rings of Power. We're talking about She-Hulk in particular because this is the end, my friends.
Thank goodness.
The last episode. Yeah.
It's so funny because I hadn't watched it, and Frankie was just spoiling it because I didn't care. Nobody cares. Who would care? And the things he was describing sounded like he was trolling me. Like,
yeah,
I thought at first I was taking your word for it, and I'm like, no, this sounds fake. You must be trolling.
Yeah, it's totally fair. I mean, that's exactly what I would have thought too. Because I was like, all right, so what happens is 4chan has a meetup, and it turns out like that the bad guy was the guy that she dated, the douche, and then Bruce Banner shows up to save her, and she gets like annoyed by the whole thing, and so she bursts through the streaming service and marches up to the writers. And as far as I can tell, it really is at least some of the real writers. They were probably dying to be in this thing. I get that impression. And then they're like, no, you got to talk to Kevin. And then she's like, Kevin Feige. She's like, I'll go talk to him. And it's an AI of Kevin Feige who built the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. So now we're like totally through the looking glass. And he's like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a formula. So they're just hating on themselves. And then she's like, no, like, here's like the not sexist way to do it. The villain is just the villain. It doesn't have to be a twist. And I just want him to be held accountable. And he's like, you are a girl boss or something. and then he gives in, and I actually don't know what happens. It's like the bad guys are being carted away by the police very suddenly.
Yeah. Does she just like call the police and they're all taken away? Like they talked mean to me on the internet, and then the police come and take them away. Is that how it works?
Get in the paddy wagon.
I mean, there was a revenge porn sex tape, so that is technically.
Oh yeah. You got him for that.
But still.
And then, and by the way, the guy that she in like episode 7 or whatever who she had sex with, who got the revenge tape, he's not in this.
He like disappears.
there's a lot of stuff like that because like in the end, this is a show that's very nihilistic. Like nothing that they did really matters.
Anything they established doesn't matter. All the characters are very one-dimensional. And I was talking to you about this when we'd have an assignment. Sometimes the professor, knowing that we would try to be clever,
Right.
in quotes,
Right.
it's like, don't make the assignment about writing a script. Like,
Yeah.
just write a script, write a story. Don't make it about like a film student having trouble writing a script and then something happens. Like, it's like a basic film school thing because they must have it all the time. Like everyone thinks they're clever. The night before the assignments due, they like rush to do something, and it's this meta thing about being a college student writing something.
Do you remember that Charlie Kaufman movie adaptation with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
So like he plays himself and the twin brother of himself, which I think is fictional, and it's about like him, he's having a hard time writing the screenplay, so it ends up being a screenplay about him writing the screenplay about this biopic. But the movie like hates like the screenwriter character of Charlie Kaufman hates himself for doing that, for going down that path. The whole thing becomes like 3 or 4 layers of meta, But yeah, even in that, like, which is like probably the most clever way you could do it, they at least were like, geez, that's hackney,
Yeah, because it's the refuge of losers is going in that path.
I remember there's a Kenny versus Spenny episode where they were like, who can write the best, like who's the best journalist? Who can write the best news article? And Kenny, he dresses up like Yanni and like other celebrities. Or like he hires somebody to be like a Beyonce lookalike, and he tries to like take photos and be like celebrity sighting. But Spenny keeps like looking for a story. It's like, maybe I can talk to a homeless guy, or maybe there's somebody who lives in the sewer or something. But he like can't get a story, and so he ends up writing a story about like, I lost myself in the heart of darkness. And so it becomes a journalist piece about like how journalism is evil. It's just kind of, it's where you go at 4 a.m. when the thing is due, that day.
So it just felt like, chaotic, nihilistic, like the worst tendencies of Rick and Morty, which I think Rick and Morty writers are on this thing.
Oh, really?
And it nothing came together. And the problem with the series in general is that people are like, oh, well, it's a comedy, it's a sitcom or whatever. Okay, but it doesn't make me laugh. There's no jokes that are funny, or they don't get elevated.
Yeah, I think it's very weak comedy.
It's a lawyer show, but it's not a good lawyer show either. They barely do any lawyering,
and they admitted to that, right? That was like in the early press. They were like, "No, don't expect anything of the legal part of this. That's just part of the assignment, and we avoided it."
Yeah, well, why do it? And you should hire somebody who can. So that, and it's not really, and it just is disrespectful to like Marvel properties in general. So it's like everything that it does poorly, and then even the things that it did establish, it just discards them at the end. So it just feels like nothing. And like, okay, so it's a comedy. It's just supposed to have jokes, and you're supposed to laugh. But even like, you think about the best like sitcoms or the best, like I think about like New Girl. It's like all those characters work. Their chemistry is great. There is a background plot that they do take seriously sometimes, and it builds to something. It's like even in a sitcom, you have to have those things.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't just dispense with it because it's a joke comedy.
Well, we'll talk more about this with Hot D as well as with House of the Dragon.
Yes.
I'm never letting it go. But I think like the telltale sign of good storytelling, when you really have something, and this is easier said than done, is when you have 2 components. You have, and I'm talking about serialized storytelling or like narrative movie storytelling. Each scene advances the plot so that things are in motion, and the characters are well defined, and we know what they desire. And we know what success looks like to them. We know what failure looks like to them. That's like all really well sketched. And the better the show, like really good shows, there's not a character. There's not even the very, very minor characters. Like that's really, really clearly sketched out. And I think with a sitcom or with episodic television, the characters are absolutely everything because the plot does not advance episode to episode. It resets. Now this show didn't really do it was like a serialized sitcom, so it's like the format's a little bit difficult to work with, but that's okay. That's been done many times before, where there's an overarching idea, but each episode is standalone.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is the characters. Like you have to, by episode 2 or 3, you got to be like, man, I can't wait to see Jen in this situation. It's a situation comedy, or wow, imagine if you took these two characters and trapped them in an elevator, or whatever. Like that's what sitcom writing's supposed to be. And this is like, I don't know. I feel like I see the writer's hands way too much, and I get it. It's the fourth wall breaking or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like I see the people on a deadline trying to get this thing out the door, going to like all of their most base instincts, Yeah,
and that's like you said. Do I want to see Jen? What do I even know what Jen is? What her character is? Besides,
I feel like I don't in the end.
Frivolous. There's no. Yeah,
she represents all of the things that like a BuzzFeed article would expect. Like I can make guesses about, but sometimes there's a lot of dissonance moment to moment, and certainly the show didn't care about like, what am I setting up? How do I get the most emotional or comedic impact out of any given scene?
Yeah.
And like for the 4chan meetup or whatever, first of all, the 4chan guys were a little on the handsome side, don't you think?
Could have made them a little more hideous. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you're trying to make fun of them and humiliate them, or their type, like at least have them be a bunch of like sniveling like virginal trolls or something, or be very stylistic with it. Put them all in like prosthetics or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Literal trolls.
Yeah, like oh my god, they're literal. That would be so funny if they were actually trolls.
Yeah, it was like straight from Rings of Power, just like the white supremacist like orcs they have.
But then, like, they had them having and they did this through the whole series, where they would sort of predict what the online discourse would be in very broad strokes. Like, like, I bet people won't like our show. Probably not. And then, like, and I bet there'll be men. Yeah, there probably will be some men who don't like the show. And I bet they'll deny that it's because of sexism. So in our show, we'll make jokes about how they're denying that it's sexism, but it will really be sexism. And I'm like,
the word female.
I'm like, well, that's just you got these guys coming and going, don't you? There's no escape from your criticism.
Yeah,
and then
it's baked into it. They expected the criticism. I mean, I'm sure they hoped it would come for some publicity.
Oh yeah, but I don't know. It really feels to me like the leadership that was involved with the last 12 years and 35 movies didn't really care how this one panned out. But I really do believe, truly, that everybody kind of like the people who liked it, the people who don't like. I think most people stopped watching after like episode 2, 3. Yeah, they're kind of like, okay, that's cute. She-Hulk. Like even defenders of it, I think, like kind of. We're the only ones who went for the whole ride.
Yeah.
I think
it's because you have to watch every minute of a show to have an opinion of it, right?
Yeah, we've been told that.
And we did the work, man. We did it.
Yeah. Well, again, that's another one of those like bulletproof things where it's like, no, you got to watch it all. But then like you do, and then you like show up with your opinion, and you're like, why do you have such a fucking opinion?
It's like, why do you care so much?
As far as why I care so much, first of all, I promise I don't. This is like one of them YouTube shows where you talk about movies and shows, the popular ones that are out. Oh, maybe this doesn't qualify though, because I don't think it was very popular.
No,
but I don't think it was watched. But and I believe that about Rings of Power. I don't think anybody's watching Rings of Power.
I don't.
And I believe that about Andor. I don't think anybody's watching Andor.
I don't see anything. No heat on any of these shows.
No.
Andor, She-Hulk, Rings of Power. You don't see like memes unless they're like making fun of the show itself, which is a bad sign. So you don't see memes, you don't see discussion, you don't see like, I don't see any Twitter. Like it doesn't trend ever on Twitter.
But there was all kinds of heat on it in the first, like during its debut or leading up to it or whatever. And I think that I think that Disney, as an example, has no confidence that their stuff is going to get any better anytime soon. Like they're just going to keep making this sort of thing. And they're like, well, the numbers are pretty damn good at first. And the truth is we make like 9 or 10 of these things and it doesn't actually bring people to the platform in the way that we hoped it would. Therefore, we're probably better off doing like big streaming events that will sort of like drive subscriptions, and then and they probably have heard the criticism about like we're butter scraped over too much bread, Gandalf. Like it's too thin.
Yeah, well, and they had a recent success in that werewolf. I haven't watched that werewolf special there.
Yeah,
but
so what is? I have no idea what it is. Werewolves.
It's Werewolf by Midnight or something. It's some Marvel property that was adapted by. Actually, the composer of a lot of Marvel stuff in Lost was Giacchino, and I guess this is just a passion project that he like asked to do. They're like, okay, whatever, and he did it, and people like it and they watch it, and I think it's just only an hour. Perfect. I've often joked having fun up their length is perfect.
I've been wondering for a while why don't streaming, if nothing else, should be like this license to make the runtime whatever you'd like. You're not fitting a format. There's no ads. There's no like, oh, I didn't get my money's worth when I went to the theater. Like make have a vision for how long it should be, because if hopefully even the very positive among us would agree that these shows they outstay their fucking welcome.
Yeah, and so apparently this show, I haven't seen it, so I don't know the werewolf show. It seems like this guy wanted to make it, which a lot of these Disney shows, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to make them. And he fought to get it done. People, it's not a masterpiece, but people are like, oh, that was pleasant. I liked watching that. And
I would check in, yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's probably some 90-minute, 60-minute version of She-Hulk that I would like totally watch and be like, okay, because it just imagine if like it just ended up not being for you, it had a crappy ending or whatever, you just wouldn't really be that angry about it,
Yeah, it'd be an hour and be like, oh, okay, I saw like maybe it would just be like She-Hulk, like I don't know, becoming She-Hulk and doing a couple things and then getting out of there. It'd be fine.
I gotta tell you, this is just a quick comment I wanted to make to kind of like, because I do think there's an out of touchness about, well, all of Hollywood really, but this show, here's an example. What percentage of the people who tuned in and watched She-Hulk do you think know the name Kevin Feige?
Oh, that's a good question.
He's not Walt fucking Disney.
No.
I know he's a big deal in the industry, and if you pay attention to the industry or you really, really track these movies, you're going to be in the know. But I'm talking about normies, and normies are who subscribe to Disney Plus. Do they know who Kevin Feige is, the executive producer of Marvel? I mean,
yeah, that's why you can't really do this meta stuff, because I think normies are just gonna be like, "What are you talking about? Where are we going?"
Yeah. I wonder what he thought of that when they were like, Kevin.
They'd be like, go have fun.
Yeah, he's
have
like,
fun with it.
Whatever. He doesn't give a shit. Kevin. They're gonna crash the writer's room, and it's gonna be us. We're gonna be in the show. It's gonna be and then she's gonna go, well, how come my show sucks?
Don't blame me, blame Kevin.
And then we're going to blame you, Kevin, because you weren't overseeing any of this. Of course, he didn't pick up the call, so this is all over the answering machine. You forgot what Marvel was. He goes to Comic-Con once a year. And he's like, and he stands in front of that giant screen of logos. And then
like, look at them. Look at those logos.
Oh, no, there is one more thing to say about She-Hulk. They self-indulgently opened with like a 70s She-Hulk trailer. It had nothing to do with anything. They just wanted to do it, so they did it. But I will say, whoever directed that, whoever like envisioned that, they had like a bodybuilder who played She-Hulk and the shot on like 16 millimeter film or whatever, and it had like the synth music, and I actually thought it was really, really well realized. I thought it was like very impressive, actually.
I feel like they could have just expanded that for the whole series.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, was there a more stylistic way to go with this?
Yeah, because like even you could just deep fake like what's her face onto the bodybuilder. You could do that.
Yeah. It'd be freakish, but whatever, you know.
It'd be funny.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.